Greetings and salutations, and we're back with the One Talent Challenge in Diablo 2. And today's topic, while I play Diablo 2, which this is how you can tell Diablo 2 is a fair bit easier than a lot of other games in the genre, is the fact that I can kind of go off topic and just let my mind wander and not worry about it. But this is more so an experiment to see if the game could be beaten using singular talents, which we found out that there's a lot of classes that can. A Thorns Paladin works. Druid works. Druid was a little bit sketchy on a couple of them, but Druid does work. Necromancer didn't work with the skeletons. I just couldn't get past Duriel because it was just pure skeletons. Might be able to do it with, say, Golem or maybe something else, but we'll figure it out. Amazon could do it with Magic Arrow. Assassins can do it with certain things. But we still have a great time doing it, so I'm just going to keep going. Now, the thing I want to talk about today... Wow, I didn't get the waypoint. I'm a fool. Is this being the last week of the NFL. Now, I know a lot of people out there are like, sports ball, and they don't really care. Which, that's fine. That's your proclivity. You don't care about, sports. Fine and dandy, no problem. I watch sports for generally two reasons. One of the reasons I watch sports is it's kind of fun to sit there and watch something on the television that you're just not really completely wholeheartedly invested in and just kind of let your mind wander, right? It's kind of fun. Now, I watch football, and for a large number of years, I have suspected that all sports, to some degree, are fixed, rigged, if you will. And people would say, well, of course you do, because you're one of those conspiracy theorists. Sure, let's go with that. They're basically entertainment franchises. I mean, this was ruled on in court. They ruled out. That's painful. They ruled in court that the NFL is actually one giant entertainment franchise and not multiple sports franchises. And by listing it as an entertainment franchise, it means that certain things can occur and it's not technically illegal. Much like with WWE, you could technically fix the fights and it's not technically illegal. But that wasn't really the whole thing of the court case. The real big thing about the court case was the fact that the NFL being labeled a solitary entertainment franchise and not multiple sports franchises means that it should be subject to antitrust law. Whoops. It's not. Why not? The argument made in court was, well, because there are 32 teams and anybody can choose any team to follow. They're not being relegated to follow the same team. Okay, not too hateful for logic. I mean, I could see the logic there. But at the same time, that's still all money going back to the same franchise. But you'll notice some certain things that kind of stick out as odd. For example, you take a look at who the CEO of the NFL is. Now, there are two people that can really tell referees what to do in the NFL. One of which is the COO, the Chief Operations Officer. The other is the CEO, chief executive officer, who's higher than the COO. Well, we're going to get to exactly why this is important in a second. The CEO is one Roger Goodell. Now, I've got my fair bit of, how do I want to put this? Issues, shall I say, with Roger Goodell and the way he runs things. But there were two teams that voted against him, and one team that abstained, owners of the teams that voted against him to become CEO. Now, mind you, these teams all got to vote, and 29 teams voted to have him as the CEO. The two teams that voted no were Al Davis's Raiders and Ralph Wilson's Buffalo Bills. The one team that abstained from the vote was the guy that owned the Washington Redskins. And yes, I will call them the Redskins, and no, that is not deemed hateful for two reasons. One, the Blackfeet Chief, who was the mascot, or not the mascot, but the logo. He was the man behind the logo of the helmet. Gave his blessing to be the logo, right? He was a Blackfeet Chief. He gave his blessing to it. He says it's perfectly fine. No, that's fine by him. That's number one. Number two, they have tried to sue the NFL to get it put back on the helmet. But let's go down some seriously suspicious things, because we know how I love to do this. I go down, routes where it's a little suspicious. So anyway, here we go. The suspicions. The team that abstained was forced to change their name from the Redskins, because it was offensive, even though it wasn't, to the Washington football team, to then the Washington Commanders. And they're trying to be put back as the Washington Redskins. They're trying their level best, and I've got to hand it to them. But the Chiefs, nope. Chiefs are allowed to keep their name. Kansas City Chiefs, with an arrowhead on their helmet, that have war drums in their stadium that they bang before the game, and they do the chop. None of those are offensive. But being called Redskins was. Maybe because the man abstained for voting for Goodell, and Goodell is nothing more than a petulant child. But let's go deeper. Roger Goodell's best friend was one Robert Kraft, who was the dominant team in the early 2000s when Roger Goodell was made CEO of the NFL. Oh, that's right, Robert Kraft's New England Patriots. Isn't that weird? Now, there have been many suspicious things that have popped up over the years. People saying that the Super Bowl colors are kind of a hint of who's going to play, so on and so forth. But let's go further on this one. You have these teams that are out there right now, and some of them had to face a few tragedies. Al Davis's Raiders was about ready to go bankrupt in Oakland. This was back when he was alive. The Raiders were kept out of the playoffs from 2001 till 2000. They were kept out of big playoff name games. Hence why the tuck rule came in, even though that was effectively ruled a fumble, and it was a turnover. The tuck rule was made to keep the Raiders out of the Super Bowl. In that very moment, it just, oh hey, we got the tuck rule now. Seems that's a little weird. But we will go on. Al Davis's Raiders were kept out of the limelight for the entire time Al Davis was alive. Al Davis was about ready to go bankrupt. Ralph Wilson bailed him out. Ralph Wilson gave Al Davis somewhere in the ballpark of like $2 billion and bailed him out. And said, no. You keep the Raiders in Oakland. You keep them in Oakland, you keep them in LA, you keep them where you have to because you like it there. The moment Al Davis died, the Raiders made the playoffs. Then the very next year, the Raiders moved to Las Vegas. Well, year and a half afterward, they moved to Las Vegas. Bigger venue, Goodell makes more money. That's the whole reason he wanted him there. But it's basically to rub salt in the eyes of Al Davis. Because Al Davis is you can't take Al Davis's name and put it in the Las Vegas Stadium. Nope. Al Davis's name is now on the Oakland Stadium, but what good does it do? Nobody goes there. It's to wipe him out of the history books, because, you see, he voted no against the petulant child. So that's not allowed. But Ralph Wilson really spat in the petulant child's eye by not only voting no, but by also effectively bailing out the man that also voted no. It was to send a message, you see. And boy, did he have to send a message to the Buffalo Bills. Now, as you know, Buffalo's had their fair ups and downs as a team. Under the Tagliabue era, they went to 4 Super Bowls, lost all 4 of them in a row. And then after that, into the Goodell era, they didn't really do much of anything. They were in this supposed transitional phase. Well, let's take a look at what actually happened. Ralph Wilson died. Buffalo made the postseason, only as far as the wild card. Then they changed the name of the stadium from the Ralph, which is what it was known as for a while after Ralph Wilson's death, to New Era Stadium, as it became known. And then they were allowed into the playoffs to a deeper extent. And then it got changed to New Era Stadium, where they're being allowed into the playoffs again. But now they're getting a new stadium. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, wait a minute. What's that got to do with the price of beans in Borneo? Well, let me tell you what it has to do with it. Let's look back at people that get new stadiums and what happens. Well. When you get a stadium, you get revenue. But you have to be able to pay for the stadium. How do you pay for the stadium? Merchandising. Mostly. Not just ticket sales. Because ticket sales will only get you so far. It's no different than, say, band. Like a Like if you want to go watch, let's say, Metallica. Right? Not that anybody would want to anymore, but let's say you do. And you go there and you put down money for tickets. Yeah, the tickets are expensive to a degree. And then as soon as you're done there, you leave the show and you buy a shirt and maybe a hat or whatever for 500% markup right there at the venue. It's a bit extreme, but that's where they make all their money. They don't make it on album sales, and they don't make it on ticket sales. They make it on merchandising. Same thing can be said for the NFL. You make most of your money on merchandising. So, with the stadium being built, they have to make money. Well, how do you make money to pay off the stadium, and how do you make money to keep these people where they need to be kept? Because we got to remember, if they're playing ball with Goodell, chances are they're going to get treated well. Well, you either put them in the Super Bowl or you make them win a Super Bowl. Now, people would say, of course, well, if that's the case, all these teams would win Super Bowls every year. No. A couple years ago, when the Kansas City Chiefs went against the San Francisco 49ers, I got asked a question by a few people. They said, well, who do you think is going to win? I said, I'm on level with you. I said, stats-wise, San Francisco's a better team. I said, however, this is a big if, and this is a big perhaps, and maybe. I said, there is one caveat. That caveat is, who's getting a new stadium? They said, wait, why does that matter? I said, because stadiums generate money. The stadiums cost money. So you have to make back the money for the owner before you can generate money for the boss. And so it ran along. And what do you know? Chiefs win. I walk in the next day and they go, ha! Chiefs won. You were wrong. I said, ha! And I slid them my phone where the Chiefs got put into a new stadium the year before. I said, well, look at that. They got a new stadium. They said, okay, well, what about San Francisco? San Francisco got a new stadium like 3 years ago. But they said, but the Niners didn't go to the Super Bowl. I said, no, but the San Francisco Giants won the World Series. They play in the same stadium. That's why. It's all about the money. So, weird coincidences. Outside of just stadiums generating money, of course. Here we go. You had the whole undefeated Patriots go and lose to the Road Warrior Giants. That didn't make much sense. But think about it from the bookies' perspective. Everybody and their grandma was putting money on the Patriots to win. Why? They were just a far superior team 100% of the time. Who made a killing? Again, who stands to gain? Here we go. Who stands to gain? Vegas. Bookies. Who else stands to gain? Well, back when gambling on football was deemed illegal by most of the league, if not everybody, you had Tom Brady, who at the time was dealing with the whole potential of Deflategate. Remember that? Some of the testimony from Deflategate was Tom Brady smashes his phone every 3 months like clockwork. Why would you have to smash your phone? Because you're betting against yourself and making money? You are the quarterback after all. This is not the first time it's happened. Johnny Unitas did the same thing. Joe Namath did the same thing. They've all done it. My PC keeps revving up and then spooling down. It shouldn't, because it's not that graphically intense. Then again, it's probably like 77 in this room right now, or if not 80 degrees, because I shut the door. It'll be like opening the door to a refrigerator when I do it. But anyway, older football stars used to do the same thing. Baseball players did the same thing. It happened all over the place. People rampantly gambled against themselves. Why? Who's in control of the game? Oh, Tom Brady goes out and has an off day, throws a couple of pick sixes to the Giants, and they end up winning the game. Oh, no. Yeah, he had a bad game. Everybody buys it. Oh, it's just he was off that day. He had the flu, something, right? And everybody buys the lie. Okay. Now, there's a problem with that, though. They say, well, what's that? Well, why does it matter? Well, because when he puts money against himself and then he goes out and throws a game, he makes bank. Even by chucking the game. Oh, but he could have had another Lombardi. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the Lombardis. He never has. He cares about money. And a lot of them do the same thing. This is not a joke. I can guarantee that a lot of them gamble either against themselves or on themselves or what have you. Golfers probably do the same thing. Baseball players do the same thing. Matter of fact, there's baseball players under investigation right now that are playing for the Cleveland Guardians, or as I'm going to call them, the Cleveland Indians, because, you know, screw that whole thing about, you can't say that. You know why? I have Native American bloodline in my lineage. My father looked like he walked off the res, so I'm going to say it. Right? I tan red. There's a reason why when I tan red, and no, it's not a sunburn, I literally tan and I come out red. That's why they were called the Redskins. It's not offensive. It's just a matter of fact. So, anybody that has a problem with it, too bad, so sad. I guess it sucks to be you. So anyway, people that played for the Cleveland Indians are being investigated for throwing pitches to throw the game. Right there, proof that they've been doing it. Now, with the advent of all of this online gambling that you can do, anybody can do it. You can have somebody else betting for you. Yeah, so now it's going to be harder to track and trace all of these people betting against themselves, because they could just do it through an intermediary. Weird, huh? But let's go deeper into the whole it's still rigged. Katrina. Mind you, this is during the height of the Brady Super Bowl run era, where I'm going to go win 7 Super Bowls, but never attend 4 in a row, so on and so forth. Anyhow, during this era of the most dominant supposed dynasty in the NFL, Katrina happens. What do you know, lo and behold, the Saints go to the Super Bowl and win, generating money for the stadium, because the stadium had to be retrofitted after it housed a whole bunch of people as storm refugees and needed repairs. How do you make money? And there's storylines, a whole bunch of stuff too. Whole Eagles Chiefs. I mean, they're even mocking people now, openly. They say that, you know, football is nothing more than a gimmick to sell food. No, it's not a gimmick to sell food. It's a gimmick to sell a bunch of other things. Yeah, that's what it is. But I digress on that part. I will, however, say that they've been doing this for years. Years and years and years. Now, with Buffalo getting a new stadium, I expect, depends on who all plays there, if the Buffalo Sabres play there, the Sabres might get a Stanley Cup instead. Chances are there'll be a Lombardi trophy handed to Buffalo at some point, or at least a Super Bowl appearance. Now, they're fans of a big old nice storyline, right? Especially if it benefits them. They love a good storyline. So let's put on our thinking caps. What would be a really good storyline? Buffalo attends another Super Bowl, plays against the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's just say. I'm gonna spitball that idea. And as they're playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, not only would this be a single team, Buffalo, playing against every single NFC East opponent. Buffalo already played in the 90s. They already played against the Redskins, the Cowboys, and the Giants, and lost to all 3 of them. They lost to Bill Parcells' Giants, they lost to Jimmy Johnson's Cowboys twice, and they lost to the Redskins once, I believe. And that was before Goodell got voted in. Now, you have the Eagles. They're an up-and-coming team. They've been hot recently. You need Buffalo to make either a Super Bowl appearance or a Super Bowl win. What would also make a good storyline? Buffalo is the first NFL team to face every single NFC East division opponent. No other team has faced every other opponent in the division. Hasn't happened. Which is true story. It has not. Now, what would be an even better story? Let's say Buffalo goes there and loses. They would be the only team to lose to an entire division in the Super Bowl. And of course, you also have the theory of the colors. Colors theory is the colors of the Super Bowl logo match the colors of the teams that will be attending, which doesn't surprise me. Now, up until Tampa Bay, under the auspices of Brady, again, another feather in the cap for Goodell's favorite pet. When Tampa Bay went and was hosting the Super Bowl, played in the Super Bowl, and won the Super Bowl, that's the only time ever in the history of the NFL that the home team was allowed to attend the Super Bowl. Every other time it was stopped. The team never made it to the playoffs. They had a terrible season. They were riddled with injuries, or they just didn't make it through the playoffs. They would make it to the playoffs and then just get ousted first round. That was by design. That was to prevent a home field advantage win for the team. That all got thrown out because it was Brady's last run. So Goodell, in the fact that he had to hand that man another ring, and yes, they will hand rings to people who have played ball in the NFL, and by played ball I mean on the inner workings of the NFL. They will hand Super Bowl rings and Lombardis to people who are retiring. They've done it before. It makes a nice little happy retirement story. Ray Lewis. Yeah. It's not uncommon. And for people to sit there and think that it is uncommon, it's not. It all revolves around making money. It all revolves around certain things like that. It all revolves around basically corruption. Now, let's not go further down the corruption hole, but let's talk if it wasn't. If it isn't rigged. Let's say it's not rigged, I'm full of hot air, right? Let's just say that. I'm off my nut. I think Dak Prescott's leaving the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the season. Reason being, Dak Prescott was the season leader for pass yards this year. With a team that had a record that was abysmal. He threw for over 4,000 pass yards this year. 4,000! And they couldn't make postseason. And of course people would say, well, that's because CeeDee Lamb got injured. Well, no, because there's more than just CeeDee Lamb on the team. It's not because CeeDee Lamb got injured. It's a contributing factor, but it's not the factor. Also, little thing about the injuries. They will fake a lot of the injuries. A lot of the sports people will fake an injury, especially if it's something minor like turf toe, or they'll say, oh, I've got a sprained ankle, or oh, I've got an illness. They'll fake it just so they can take a dive, and it's always on crucial games where they're needed and where they would have been a big, impactful player. On purpose, by the way. On purpose. They're usually betting against their own team, too. And something will happen like, oh, I got the flu, and I'm down with the flu for 2 days. Really? Just 2 days? Seems weird. Anyhow, I see Dak Prescott, this is just my personal belief, I see Dak Prescott either being traded for or just being moved contractually to a West Coast style offense. Raiders, because the Raiders need somebody new at the quarterback position. Now, why do I say a West Coast style offense? Well, take a look at Dallas. 4,000 passing yards with only one notable real receiver on the team. That's kind of a gunslinger mentality, isn't it? He's throwing the ball more than he's running the ball, which kind of makes you one-dimensional, but it worked, at least to a degree. So it raises the question, well, who would want to pick up aging talent like Dak? Well, Raiders, they're one, and I've already said that. But there's others. You have other teams that have that West Coast style offense that could really use an aged veteran quarterback. Not the Chiefs, because they've already got Mahomes, who I think faked some of his injuries so he didn't have to play the last 2 games. That way his stats didn't look abysmal, but I digress. The Rams might want somebody, even though they have Goff. I'm sorry, not Goff, Stafford. Rams have Stafford, so they might want to rotate somebody in that position. Arizona Cardinals, they might want somebody. They might want to pick up somebody. I don't expect him to go to an AFC team, truthfully. I mean, Raiders is a bit of a stretch. I think he'd stick in the NFC. I think he'll probably go to somebody like the Cardinals in the offseason. Again, they might trade for it. They might say, you know what, we want Dak, and we're going to give you draft picks and whatever. And I think CeeDee Lamb's going to go too. Because you got to think, Jerry Jones traded away Micah Parsons, okay? Traded Micah Parsons to Green Bay. Micah Parsons goes over there, sets Green Bay up, makes it an absolute menace in the Green Bay defense till he gets injured. Now, either Jerry Jones is Nostradamus of football and knew that Micah Parsons was going to get injured, or he needed the extra cap space, salary cap space. Now, why would he need the extra salary cap space, you're wondering? Because I think he has diversified investments that are going under. Bit of a theory. I think Jerry Jones has diversified investments that aren't doing too hot. And I think by way of him saying, hey, like, we're going to get rid of this, and this, it opens up dollars worth of cap space, which he's then going to pocket through embezzlement to try to pay off some possible stock shortings. That's just my theory. Because why would you trade away one of your most prolific defensive people to another team only to have that team become an absolute menace with him until he gets injured? Seems a little weird. Like I said, either you are a Nostradamus for foreseeing the fact that he got injured, or you wanted him out of your organization because you needed money. It's the only thing that resonates. And it's not like they got much of anything in the deal either. What they get, like a draft pick and something else? Maybe a couple of players? Now, that's not to say people don't make bonehead maneuvers in this league, because they do. One of the bonehead maneuvers that's made in this league, oddly enough, is made by Buffalo. This is a common thing. And there's other teams that do it too, but Buffalo does it unlike anybody else. Buffalo will take decent players that they've drafted, they've put some time and effort into them, and they will then trade these drafted players that are decent away. And they will trade them for aged talent, which then becomes crippled talent and fails. And then they will then trade away the aged, crippled talent for draft picks. And the cycle continues. I forgot to repair my weapon. But the cycle continues. Now, Of course, people would say, well, all teams do that. But it's true, they do. I mean, look at the New York Jets. They've done it. The Raiders have done it. The Titans have done it. The Panthers have done it recently. Then again, the Panthers actually kind of limped into the playoffs this season. And of course, people be like, wait a minute, what do you know about the NFL? Well, not a whole lot, but I know that what I do know can be summed up with, I know enough to be decent at picking the teams that are going to go to the playoffs based on the records that these teams have by the end of week 3. And yes, I do that every year. I do a week 3 pick of who will be playoff bound. So there's a Ral, and there's a Tal, and there's an Ort. So we go Ral, Ort, Tal. Ancient's Pledge. Damage goes to mana, tons of resistances. Boom. See, now we look at my resistances, and now we're talking. You take a look at it for the previous ones. Poo. Now we're talking. I do need a new weapon, though. I kind of want to get, like, a flail or something. This one's decent, but I do need a new weapon. We're going to gamble. That's not a bad gamble. Okay, that one was terrible. That one's terrible, too. Hey, normal attack speed, though. We're gonna start gambling away some more stuff. Why not? If I could get a decent sword here. See, I'm not a fan of just the normal attack speed. That's kind of poo. So that's why I'm kind of gambling for more. $21 poison damage. Nice. Okay, so let's switch it up. Flail? Is there a flail? Flail available? There we go. Wow, talk about a flail boat. Ooh, wait a minute. 2 socket, skull brand flail. Poison damage, fire damage. I like it better than the hammer I got. And now because it's got 2 sockets, I can throw stuff in it. Yeah, we're going to throw that in there. 100 poison damage. Only 83, huh? So I guess it's variable. What else we got? What else? That's attack rating. That's target defense. Knockback. Knockback wouldn't be bad. Gotta think of it. Nine to minimum damage. Oh, maximum damage. Never mind. The knockback wouldn't be bad at all. There's fire damage there, too. I could do fire damage. I could do cold damage. That would slow them. We'll do it. There we go. Nice. I mean, could I have waited to put in a perfect one? Yeah, I could have. But did I want to wait? No, I didn't. I expect other things to happen now. I'm not a fan of Shadur Sanders. And the reason I'm not a fan of Shedeur Sanders is because of the whole nepotism. My dad's uh, my dad's Deion Sanders. Well, la di da. I mean, when he got trolled by people, uh, I thought it was hilarious, personally. And people are like, "Oh, that's just mean. You shouldn't have trolled him." And it's like, yeah, you should have. This is a guy that came out and basically was like, "Oh, my dad made enough money. I don't need money from this league." And it's like, you know what? If you're gonna sit there and boast like that, that kind of attitude is gonna get you absolutely nowhere in life, my friend. So yeah, I'm with the whole he should have been made fun of, 100%. So I'm not a fan of him at all. Now, I find it funny that he got drafted by one of the worst teams in the league. Um, Historically, one of the worst teams in the league. And to me, that's just chuckle worthy. But I can see Cleveland kind of picking up maybe a different quarterback. I don't see Joe Burrow going anywhere. There's a lot of teams that I don't see much lateral shift. The Jets are in trouble. The Giants need some work too. So I mean, there's a lot of teams out there that are terrible. Which, if you think about it, obviously not all teams can be good. And there's a lot of questionable calls, and those calls are all done by the chief organization officer, the COO. But it's not limited to him either, because they can be told, hey, we want to do this. Oh, well, that sucked. I thought that was going to be a 2-second one. Because I kind of want to stealth. Maybe I'll wait until get the other piece that says it's like a ghost armor or whatever. But nevertheless, yeah, I expect to see some moving and shaking in the NFL. That's under the assumption that I'm wrong about it being rigged. I think all professional sports are rigged to a degree. Even golf. As much as golf is fun to watch on television, I still think it's rigged to a degree. I mean, think about it. You're the golfer. You're the guy up there. You're making hundreds of thousands of dollars to hit this ball and then get in a cart and then go hit the ball again. Effectively. And where I think that it's rigged is, put it to you this way: if you were a professional golfer and people couldn't prove that you were actually throwing the game, would you throw the game and bet against yourself? Would you throw the game and get like millions of dollars by betting against yourself? Most people would. Now, am I going to say that that makes them terrible people? No. I think it makes them a little bit misguided. It's like you're not playing for the love of the game at this point. You're playing for the love of money. But that's me. Like, that's the way I look at things. It seems a little weird, sure, but maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm the oddball. Wouldn't be surprising. I'm going to get this next level here, and then I will call this video. You know, there was a game way back in the day that was called Harbinger. It was done in the Diablo 2 style, and it was a very underrated game. I don't know why I just remembered it. It was done in the same style as Diablo 2, and it had more of a future vibe to it. Like you could get guns and other things like that and socket your weapons with like specific. Whoa. Okay, never mind. Laharis has just bitten the big one. I repeat, Laharis is down. But you could get specific enhancements, and these enhancements could increase your stats, obviously. But you could also remove them, which was kind of revolutionary for its time, but Harbinger just never went anywhere. And it had flaws, for sure. Like, it was not a flawless game by any means. It was just a different little jammer game. Kind of interesting. It's kind of funny to watch games like that, you know, get made and kind of fall off to the wayside because their competitors just better. But we've made it to the River of Flame. We've made it to Diablo's Sanctum. But given the length of the video and everything that I've done and everything that I've talked about, I'm going to have to call it here. I will be taking down Diablo in the next one. Hopefully, if I don't die. That's where the problem becomes. Is I might end up dead. I might end up dead. 100%. Nevertheless, I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I know I did. And if you happen to think that maybe professional sports might be rigged, let me know. I think it is. I've thought it for quite some time, and I think it's getting more and more blatant. So, you know, take it for what it is. But I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good one.